sometimes you are going to get some very high quotes from factories. You might know where you need to be, and that quote comes back and it's like, oh shit, like this is not going to work. That's when you pause. That's when you start to ask the factory the questions, dig deeper with them. What's driving this cost? Why does this feel so high?
Do you have a brilliant product idea but don't know where to start to get it made? Or are you looking to level up your product but afraid to take it overseas?
If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Erin, and we are
the Sourcing Gals,
your trusted guides to everything you need to know about sourcing, manufacturing, and scaling your product overseas. Whether you are just starting out or you've been making your own product for a while, we are here to help women source products overseas without the overwhelm.
In each episode, we'll share insider tips, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories to help you source more effectively, save time, and boost your profits. Duh! We know how hard it can be to juggle the ins and outs of product development, but don't worry, we've got your back.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into how you can grow your business,
make more money,
and turn your products into profit. Welcome to
the Sourcing Gals. Now let's get started. High five.
Hi.
Welcome back to episode 17 of
the Sourcing Gals.
Okay, so this is today's episode. I had one of my shower ideas, right? These ideas come in the shower, and then I'm like instantly getting out of the shower and texting you, which, by the way, I've heard that they have dry erase boards for the shower for people like me that have ideas in the shower. So I'm going to look into that. So side note, that's getting added to my Amazon cart here.
We could also talk about why there's like a mental woo-woo reason why ideas come to you in the shower and while you're driving. But we'll get into that some other time.
Okay. I'm here for that. So I texted Erin, I put it in our shared notepad of like, I have a great idea for our chat about IMU, initial markup margins. I was like, let's call it Back That Math Up, circa 1998. I think I was in freshman year, that song. And then we realized, okay, there's probably going to be some licensing issues. So we're going to call this the Let's Talk Money Honey episode, which is fine, but not as fun as
Back That Math Up.
But today's episode is going to be about math, but we're going to make this fun math. Okay.
Yes.
Meaningful math. And important math for your business.
And I honestly think this is going to sound super nerdy of me, but every time I have a product idea, this is like the first thing I do. I get out my calculator on my computer or on my cell phone and I start just like crunching these numbers.
Which, can we just make a note that I'm staring at your OG calculator?
Yeah.
Circa 20 years ago, from
2005
calculator on your desk right now, that I still cannot believe that Texas Instrument is still going. That solar powered calculator.
It was from my very first job in retail at Abercrombie. That was the company issued calculator.
The back of it was your 454 calendar, your retail calendar,
my merchant calendar.
And you would change it over every year when the new calendar would, depending on what season you were working in. Right. And it was like your child. Like it never was without you.
It never was without me. We had this joke. So firstly, the calendar, I still to this day will be sitting at my desk and I'll flip my calculator over and the calendar isn't there because I haven't used that 454 calendar in so long. But then also we had this period of time in the like late 2000s, maybe 2007, 2008, 2009, where the like kind of long cardigans were really in.
Oh, yes.
And they had these big pockets and we called them merchant pockets because we could fit our calculator. We could fit our calculator in there.
Totally.
So it was like, good thing I have my merchant pockets on today because I'd be walking to a meeting with like my pencils and my calculators clanging around because we didn't have just like iPhones back then.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I remember growing up, math was something I did not like. I remember, I truly think I actually failed fractions in fifth grade, which like what fifth grader fails a math class? But I did. I had just moved from Texas to Chicago and I was a little bit further behind in my schooling. And I just conceptually could not understand fractions in geometry. And to be fair, that type of math is still hard for my brain to compute. But I remember also one of the modules in fifth grade was learning how to write a check. and how to balance your checkbook. And I thought, this is so freaking cool, because I was already kind of an entrepreneur when I was in like 4th and 5th grade. I had a bank account. I had been making money. And so I learned quickly that when math has a purpose, at least for the purpose that I need it to work for, it was very interesting to me. My dad always said, like, your best SAT score was math. Like, why did you get a C in math in high school? It's like, because I didn't really care, because it wasn't really exciting. It wasn't really important. But economics, I thought, was fascinating. And like that type of math, again, because it actually connected to something that I understood, was so much more meaningful. So my point of that is to say that the math that we do, I believe in merchandising and in retail, I love it. And like, I love that math.
I have a very similar question. So I just told you, like, my first thing, every time I have a product idea, I hop on my calculator and I'm just crunching some numbers. And I'm like, if this is this and this is this, then we got a product here, people, you know. But I started out in college as a math major.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I tested into a differential equations class. I was the only girl in the class. And I remember going through the first week and being like, what am I doing here? This is so painful. And I just went into it because I was like good at it.
Yeah.
Not because I liked it or wanted to do it. And my dad was an engineer and he was like, you're good at math. You know, we need more women in the math field and things like that. And so that's what I did. And I despised it. And so I was also taking a botany class at the same time, which I thought was amazing. So fascinating. So I ended up switching to be like a biochemistry, biology major. But nonetheless, I was like just stellar at math, but I hated it until I got into retail math again. And it just because when you're doing it, you are looking at the health of your business. Yeah. You're looking at your idea coming to life, like on paper, and that is exciting.
Yeah. It's super exciting. So when we say we're talking about math, don't get scared. It's going to be some pretty basic adding, subtracting, division.
There will be fractions.
Multiplication. There will be, but those fractions I can deal with. So I made it through. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why margin matters. Why does having a profitable product margin matter? And what is that magic number that we like to talk about when it comes to your product margin targets?
Yeah. So I think it sounds silly to be like, well, why does this matter? But I also think that people underprice and undervalue their ideas quite often. Actually, let me back that up. I think I see it both ways. I think I see people that are selling things for pretty cheap because they think, oh, well, this is what the market can handle. I'm just going to sell it for the same price as everyone else. Mm-hmm. And people selling things for super expensive because maybe they had it made locally or handmade something. And to recoup their money, they had to sell it for super expensive. So the math that we're going to talk about today and why this profit margins matter are so that you can be on that middle ground, so that you can sell a great product that is also profitable. You can pay for your marketing. You can pay for your influencers. You can pay for your web developing. You can pay for yourself.
Yep. Oh, yourself. You're supposed to pay yourself with your business? Oh, yeah. That little thing.
Maybe not right away for some people.
Yeah. And I think the magic number that we like to talk about is 75. So there's 75 hard, right? You know, 75, have you done 75 hard? Have you heard of this?
You know, I just learned about it yesterday. Oh. I saw someone who did like a before and after, and there's only the before. There was never an after.
That would be me. I will say my marketing manager, Bailey, did it, and she's hardcore like that. And it was 75 hard days, but I'm not talking about 75 hard here. I'm talking about 75% profit margin target.
Yes. We called it an IMU, initial markup.
Yep. Initial markup. Your gross margin profit.
Yes. It's the percentage of what you're selling. Like it's the percentage of your retail price that you kind of take home.
Yeah. So let's make math really easy. Let's say you have a $100 product. To get to a 75% product margin, that would mean that your cost of goods, what it costs you to make, is $25. So after you take the $100 that you're retailing it at and the $25 that it costs you to make, you are left with $75. So again, just really round numbers here. That's kind of where we like to target most product-based businesses, especially if you are getting to that scale place, getting to the place where you're ready to really amp up. To automatically start out the gate that way might be a little bit of a struggle. There's a lot of nuances that can go into it, MOQs and minimums and, how many other things you're having to build in. But the goal would be to really know that when you get to scale, you could be somewhere around that 75% margin target. It's going to allow you to go to wholesaler. It's going to allow you to pay Facebook and Meta for all the ads you have to run. Because let me tell you, we all have ideas about, I'm going to do it fully organic. And yes, some people do, but it is hard. It is hard to organically just find the eyeballs. There's usually some money transacting that's going to help bring that community in, whether that's an influencer that costs you money, sending them free samples, right? So all these different things is why we say a 75% profit margin. It might seem very rich and very high, but you're not actually taking home 75% profit at the end of the day.
No, you're absolutely not. And I think that was one of the biggest, mistakes I made in my first product business is that I didn't know a lot about the marketing side and I didn't account for enough of my profit to go toward marketing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, we're merchants at heart, right? I remember, again, from our OG days at Abercrombie, my graphic t-shirt business ran on an 83% IMU profit margin rate. And we never really saw the back side of that number, but they're covering costs for stores. They're covering costs for employees to run those stores, the freight to get to stores, right? So an 83 seemed like so rich. And I remember thinking, wow, we're just making hand over fist and they're so stingy. Like I remember thinking those things. Yeah. And then now being on the other side of it, I'm like, and that was long before even, web was like just starting out, right? Like e-commerce sites, but there were so many costs to run an actual brick and mortar store that 83% was a very different number when they went to them, when they actually reported their earnings out.
Absolutely. And some of my more recent companies where I saw some of the back end, I think that at the end of the day, with all of the overhead, all of the marketing, paying all of the employees, all of the mortgages, keeping the lights on, I think the take home was like between 18 and 20%.
Yeah, that's good. And you're mostly in accessory businesses. So I would say that is very healthy. I feel like if you're somewhere around that 15%, EBITDA, call it that, like true net profit margin at the end of the day, people, assume that to be pretty profitable. Now, that number might not work though if you are a solopreneur only making so much in revenue, right? So there's all these like levers and layers to that. But I would say for a larger corporation, that has a lot of those overhead costs and invoices, that is a great net margin product. But tell everybody, for those similar companies, what were their IMUs? What were their initial product margin targets that they were achieving?
90.
Yeah. Listen to that, guys. 90% profit margin on the product. At the end of the day, after building their empire, they were lucky to take home 15 to 20%.
Yeah. So that was like for a $30 product, it costs us $3 to make.
Yeah. So when you hear these numbers and think, I don't need 90%, that's crazy. It's like, no, girl, trust me, that money starts to fly out every time you need to make an update to your website that you can't do yourself. And every time you're going to, hire someone on or hire an expert in your business to help you like level up. And I mean, it all adds up and all takes from your profit.
Shipping samples to China via FedEx, travel, which we talked about on our last episode, that travel has become kind of less and less with the digital of our business these days. But as a product that ran on about a 90% margin, still at the end of the day, coming out at about, an 18 to 20% take home, that's a lot that goes out to other things.
Yeah. So we're saying all this to just really make sure you're thinking about setting yourself up for success for that. So let's talk a little bit about wholesale actually, because we touched on that. So it's interesting. Like I remember when I launched Piper and Mint thinking I'm going to be direct to consumer only, like this is how I'm going. But thankfully I had the wherewithal, knowing what I know, to still be working at a very healthy margin rate for the if wholesale became available opportunity. And I will tell you that wholesale is becoming available and it's a pretty big freaking opportunity for me. And I'm so thankful that I set my margin targets where I did from the beginning, even though I thought I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if I really want to do this. I think I can kill it direct to consumer. And now I'm like, oh shit, this will be a lot easier to go wholesale and get way more different distribution channels. And yes, my profit's going to be lower, right? Because if I'm a store reselling my goods, they want to make money too, right? They have to make profit. They have to cover shipping. They have to cover their employees. They have to cover their marketing or their brick and mortar store or their e-commerce platform. So yes, I'm going to, on a per item basis, take home less, but the scale at which they are selling my product is so much larger than what I can do on my own. It's worth it.
And just to back up for anyone who is like very new to this industry, wholesale is when you are selling your goods to an other retailer for them to sell in their store or on their website. So I'll give you a great example of this is like ShopBop. So that's a digital store, but they buy things from other brands. They buy, Rag and Bone, and they buy, I don't know, give me some other ones.
I mean,
everything, really.
Everything.
So they are buying it from the designer, the main company, and then they are selling it. This would also be like a Nordstrom or a Macy's or a Target. If you are selling your product to another retailer to sell on your behalf, that's wholesale.
Also, take it down a level. Your local boutiques, right?
Yes.
There's a great opportunity for a lot of product-based businesses to go find boutiques in your area and let them sell it for you, right? They have constant traffic coming in and out. It's a great way to promote your business. You can still run your e-commerce platform, and you should 100%. But if you're able to have that store willing to buy 6, 8, 10 of your items at a time and stock it for you, and then you just get a check and get to leave the door, not too bad of a gig. So there's even a lot of local boutiques. If you don't think about big box retailers, just your local mom and pop stores that are great opportunities for wholesale. But again, you have to have the margins to allow the store to make money. Most likely they're going to want about 50%. So if you're selling that same $100 product that we talked about, they're going to probably want to buy it from you for $50. So they take home 50. And then if your cost of goods was 25, you're making 25. And you're like, wait a minute, but they're making more profit than me now. Yes. But again, they have overhead. They have a storefront. They have employees. They have costs as well associated. So they usually need at least a 50% markup on their end to keep their lights on.
So think about the math we just talked about before with the direct to consumer route. Like at the end of the day, if you end up with like 18 or maybe between 15 and 20% in your pocket, then that's phenomenal. So if you think about wholesale, if you've got that $100 product, you're selling it for 50, you're pocketing 25, that's in that neighborhood. So I think what we are really trying to impress upon you all is that your business, when you build it, regardless of your intention for how you're going to sell it, I would always just put the wholesale path in a cost sheet. Just keep it on the side if you don't plan on doing it right away, but always ensure that your product would be profitable wholesale if you wanted to take that route in the future.
And I love talking about math. I love playing with wholesale numbers on my calculator when it comes to how much someone could buy and what I could make from that, right? So I know what I make when I make a sale on my direct to consumer website. Was it from a Facebook ad? Was it from, an influencer, right? So I have a discount that I give to it, and I have a profit-ish that I will take home with one unit. Then when I look at wholesale channels, I say, okay, well, if one person buys that at wholesale, meaning a store, they're forced into a 6-unit buy. So then I take, okay, so I'm selling them 6 units at a lower price. I do the math on it and say, okay, but I'm going to take home this amount of money because I have no cost once goods are shipped and out of my hands, which, by the way, most wholesalers actually pay for shipping to their own stores, especially when you're talking about small boutiques. It's fun to play with that math and see, okay, so I sold to one store. They're going to buy 6 units. I'm going to basically ship it right to them. I have no connections after that. Like it's their job then to sell the product. And the hopeful return is that they come back and say, we sold it. We want to buy 6 more. So it's fun to play through the math of what that profit looks like, even though you're selling at such a tighter profit margin in a sense than your direct to consumer site, but the scale that it gives you, how much that actual margin dollars you're left with can grow exponentially when all of a sudden you have 5 boutiques selling your stuff, 10 boutiques selling for you, 20. And then you keep your e-commerce site going, right? Because when they go into a store and find your product, they're going to inevitably go online and find you and follow you on social.
Is that they can find you through a boutique. They can find you through a shop, but then their next time they need to buy a gift for someone, maybe they think of your product and they just go directly online and grab it. Then you're making all of that retail, or all of that margin, and the store did the marketing for you. Correct. So that is kind of the best trifecta, in my opinion, of how to sell.
Yep. So again, our point is, it is important to build the margin in to allow you to pivot, allow you to expand. And so that 75 sweet spot that we kind of talk about here, there really is a purpose behind it.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk also about the kind of danger zone of starting with the price that you got from a factory or supplier and then just building your margin up from there, because it could land you at a retail cost that just is not in line with the market.
Correct.
So let's say you decided to use a local, leather craftsman to make a beautiful leather briefcase. Well, it's a gorgeous briefcase. It costs $60 to make. So if you're, you have a leather briefcase that costs $60 and you want to do a 75% margin, what are we talking about there?
Oh, you're asking me to do some hard mental math. Grab that calculator over there.
I'm gonna grab the calculator.
Let's do this here the real way.
Okay, so that retail price ends up being $240 if you wanted to have a 75% margin and your bag costs $60 to make.
Okay.
So that's not outlandish, but if that is much higher than your competitors, if you go to, a local store and they're selling theirs for $140, you've priced yourself out of the market.
Yep.
So I think what's important is not just building up from your costs, but kind of taking where your sweet spot is in the market and work backward from it. And then you might have to zhuzh on the front end of the back end and kind of whittle it to the middle.
Well, and to be honest, I had a client that was in a similar situation. She launched, or she thought she could afford her product made in the USA, but she also was smart. She knew where the product roughly had to be priced, because there were similar products in the market, not exactly what she was making, but they were similar enough where she said, I need to fall within this $30 to $40 bucket. And so she went down the road to find the domestic supplier to get the fabric. And she quickly realized this was not going to work. When she was getting into a $15 product cost, and she knew that she hasn't even added her hang tag and her packaging and all these things, she was already at, call it a 50% margin rate just on that first cost of goods, basically, without anything else. She's like, this isn't going to work. So I talked with her. I said, hey, let's just look over. I understand the want to be domestic, but let's just look at the other options. And she realized it was literally a quarter of the price to be made overseas. So it's not to say that the entire thing had to be made even overseas. It was that exercise of her knowing, I need to be here to make this a viable product. And then her first step in with the factory was like, whoa, red flag. This isn't feeling right. Okay, yes, I'm glad you had that gut check and you knew enough to say this isn't going to work, versus taking that cost at face value and all of a sudden just trying to say, oh no, it's worth $98 now. It's like, no, but it's not, right? And so
nobody's going to look at the $30 one on the shelf and then look at your $98 one next to it and be like, yeah, this sounds good.
Exactly. So I think those are the conversations. And sometimes you are going to get some very high quotes from factories. Mm-hmm. You might know where you need to be, and that quote comes back and it's like, oh shit, like this is not going to work. That's when you pause. That's when you start to ask the factory the questions, dig deeper with them. What's driving this cost? Why does this feel so high? Because if you're looking at other products in the market that are retailing for the similar place and you've done the math, there's probably a reason why. Could it be your units? Could it be your construction? They might say, well, you know what? The printing that you want on that item is actually costing a lot of money. So when we take that fee and amortize it over your small quantities, that's why it's so high. As soon as you buy 2,000 units, this price dramatically decreases, right? There's all these things that can happen, but you have to ask the questions. If it comes back and you're concerned, start digging.
We had an episode about that. It's been 3 episodes ago, I think. So if you want to go back to dig into that, we talked specifically about what is the makeup of a product cost. So like Jackie said, here in this episode, we want to really focus on the retail cost versus what your product cost is, what that margin is. But if that product cost is too high, then go back to that episode, take a listen, work with your factory to whittle it down and go through all of the steps that we've recommended to get your product in line with the cost you need it to be.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that 75 is what is going to set you up for success.
And like we spoke about earlier, the examples I gave, like I've worked in businesses that were in 80s and 90s, and that seems ridiculous. But I've also worked in businesses that were like 65. Now, they did not sell wholesale, and they had a pretty high-end luxury product. So that kind of comes down to what you're talking about with the dollar margin. So even though they were only getting, let's say, a 65, they were selling products at $500, $600, $700. So when you're talking about 65% of $700,
yeah, that's not too shabby.
You're making $455
per one unit.
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily proportional. Your marketing isn't going to be 30% of that.
Yes, correct.
So the higher luxury, the higher your product retails for, the more leeway you have because you can look at that dollar margin too.
Yeah. That's a good call out.
The opposite of that's also true in commodity items that are throwaway or consumable. You are kind of banking on the fact that your quantity is going to be really high.
Yep.
And people are going to use something and then throw it away and then reuse it and throw it away or whatever. So the margin can be pretty low because people are going to consistently buy it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Churn and burn. So yeah, lower margin again for those mass scale products can work, but to go from zero to mass scale is a hard thing to do.
Oh
right?
yeah. That's a very difficult thing to do for yourself overnight without wholesale.
Yeah.
So that's where kind of the nuance of what are you building versus what can the market handle versus how are you selling it? Like the center point of all of those things becomes so important.
So I think to wrap up this math equation here, we are talking about building a profitable, scalable business. And at the core of that is protecting your product margin.
Yes.
At the beginning. Like at the beginning, before anything else comes into play, your product itself needs to start at a profitable place to allow you all the opportunities that will follow once it gets delivered.
Yes. And putting that math on paper in a spreadsheet out of your brain is incredibly valuable because all day long in your head, you can be like, that works. That seems like it works. But just like I said, the first thing I do when I have a new product idea is I open up a fresh spreadsheet and I'm like, yes, how much money is this idea going to make me?
I love it. And it's fun. It's fun to play with numbers when they are dollars. And it is fun to play through scenarios and just say, if I sold this many at this profit margin, and I think I could actually take home this. I mean, again, similar. It's fun to play through that. So hopefully when it's your product idea and then you're putting numbers to it, it gets you even more excited to see what the real viability and scale of it could look like.
And I know that this is a lot. We always come at you with kind of a lot, but also please know that this is one of the things that Jackie and I help people with like in depth in our product course as well, which we're on a wait list right now. But in our Smarter Sourcing product course, we actually give a spreadsheet that has the formulas, lead people through like for their specific product, what's the best and worst case scenario for their margins to kind of eliminate a lot of that guesswork.
Yeah. Well, I'm tired. I'm ready for a nap. That was a lot of math, but I'm here for it. So
a math nap?
Ooh, a math nap. I like that. Okay. Checking out for my math nap. So until next time on
the Sourcing Gals,
we'll see you back here soon.